Hello everybody, welcome back to Dominions 5. We're continuing our Let's Play for the tournament game. I've just loaded up a game here that I created with EP6 because I was curious what their starting army was. I just picked a random pretender with noblesse or anything. This is what they start with. They start with a bunch of light infantry with javelins and no protection, just a shield, and then a bunch of city guard, which are sort of a medium infantry with no hats, but shields and a spear, with like awful attack. Holy shit, this is terrible attack. Why is their attack so bad? Because it's dark? Oh, because we're in a cave for some reason. So presumably they started in Wasteland, so they don't have that malice. Okay, they're not that awful, I guess. Wow, could you imagine getting I guess if you're not a Gartha, then that really sucks. Yeah, to me, unless he took some crazy meme bless on these guys, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Even with mega scales, I mean, I guess what would you do with mega scales? You get a bunch of falchineers, 15 protection, dual wielding. That's very killy. Maybe you get a bunch of heavy infantry. These are very cheap for heavy infantry, and they get that extra protection. They have this is average quality armor, but they have natural protection 5. I guess, yeah. Or you just spam a bajillion light infantry and just murder everything with javelins. The problem, if you're lucky, if you're surrounded by light infantry and militia, this will work great. There's a lot of heavy cav though, and this is going to get slaughtered by heavy cav. Yeah, javelins are just not enough. And heavy infantry, if they're backed up with crossbows, yeah, I don't know about this. I guess mega scales, falchineers, or a combination of not militia, but javelineers maybe here, could be enough to explain what we see, and this is what I'm talking about here. So, assuming he didn't blind expand, which you wouldn't do unless you had really an awake. We've done expand, reinforce, and then go out, and we're 2 out from our capital. So he could have done but I don't think he did that because, okay, maybe I'm wrong about this. No, I am wrong about this. Okay, I'm thinking I should be seeing his troop numbers here, but the only reason I see it here is because it's adjacent. No, why do I see it here? You know, sometimes there's basic dominions. Oh, because I've got troops here. That's why. Okay, so as a scout, yeah, see, my sneaking scout does not see troops in the neighboring province. This is basic dominions, and sometimes you forget these things. So I see what's in this province, but I have no idea what's in the surrounding provinces. The reason I see what's in these provinces in terms of units is because I have an actual army here. I think. I'm probably saying some things that are really stupid and wrong, but that's what I think. So this is not an empty province. It's a province that I do not know what is in it. So it is entirely possible that he still has an army there, which would make sense with the kind of expansion pattern that I suspect he's done, which is expand once with a profit and 1 turn of recruitment, reinforce, and then push out. If he was lucky, he might have gotten this earlier if these were all super easy indies. Anyways, now I realize, now I'm less worried that he got an awake expander. That means 1 less earth snake to deal with. He might have. Look, if he has an awake expander, I think we'll be equipped well enough to deal with it. So we have another turn that I can talk about because we're on turn 6 in this game. Before I do that, though, let's talk about EP6 in a bit more detail. So let's bring it up. So EP6 is a priest that reanimate the dead kind of nation. you can summon some guys who do that for you, basically. Now, it is also Satis, so that means we have Empoisoners, which are nature assassins. Fortunately, these don't scale walls, but it means that attacking them is still going to be a pain. We're going to need poison resistance to deal with these guys. You know, this is... I mean, they could do Skele spam, but just a nature gem with Swarm makes them plenty effective. So that is an issue. They also just do, in terms of battlefield magic, we're looking mostly at Skele spam. They could do evocations. Banefire is a cross path that they have access to. So if he's putting out a bunch of Reborn, they're either going to be Death 2 for Skele spam or Death 1 Fire 1, which can do Banefire, both of which are decent options. We've got Holy 3 guys to buff the undead and also just to do banishes and smites. And the units are honestly pretty crappy for late age. These are the same units that they've had since early age. And they have not aged well, no pun intended. So the best they've got is this Sacred, which is really expensive for, I mean, 21 protection is high. That's because he's got a natural protection of 7 adding on to, you know, this plate hauberk. But all we got is like a falchion. This is a pretty mediocre Sacred. Now, you might take magic, you might take a part of a rainbow here. You might take some magic weapons on a bless, because I don't see any other magic weapons on this nation. So that might be a thing. Interestingly, this is not a terrible unit. This Desert Ranger here with a Javelin and a Falchion and decent protection and defense. He can only be recruited in Wastelands. But this is actually not a terrible unit. And Falchioniers are good units. They're not terrible. They're you know, in late age, you can spam these out a lot. The gold cost is starting to be the thing instead of the resource cost, which is, you know, what limits you early on. Dual wielding high damage. This is a lot of attack density. Unfortunately, like, they've got no real answer to archery, which is what we do a lot of and very well. So I'm feeling pretty confident if we get in a fight with these guys early on. Now, you know, if you're a nation with death mages, you're probably rushing for enchantment 5 for Horde of Skeletons. Now, these guys cannot do this version of Satis cannot do Foul Vapors off the bat. I don't think they have that. Not Patala, sorry. I see no water, nature, random possibilities here. Correct. So unless they had that on a dormant Titan, maybe, build, they could also go for Foul Vapors. Foul Vapors is the thing that's most likely to hurt me early on in a war. Now, they can kind of snowball in this, but they're not like Scaleria good at reanimating dead, but they can reanimate a ton of undead. But we are already recruiting one Lord Warden a turn. And I actually kind of feel pretty confident, even if they had like if we're thinking a year 2 or year 3 war against them, where they're starting to have like a little ball of undead, we're going to have pretty decent banishment spam going on. And I think we're just going to have a bunch of archers in front with long range and high precision, and hopefully we're just going to pick off their mages in the first round. And their skeletons are nothing super fancy. Like, our heavy infantry is just kind of not going to get hit a lot by their skeletons. I think we do okay in an early war against Satis. You know, where they have no native air access, so for them to get Arrowfen is going to be tricky. I think for a long while we're going to have the advantage. You know, if we're talking about magic, you know, before level 5 in all the fields, I'm like, yeah, they'll have Horde of Skeletons, but we're going to have like Flaming Arrows, Wind Guide. We can always go to Air Elementals or Fire Elementals ourselves, which are... Fire Elementals are great against undead. Air Elementals are great at just going to the back and killing their Skele spammers. I think we have a lot of tools. Now, if I was if I knew I was going to fight Satis, what of my secondary units, which of my non-sacreds would I focus on recruiting? I think, well, there's a window of opportunity when you're fighting Skelly Spam Nation for cavalry on hold and attack rear. A long time, well, not so long ago, but like maybe a year or a year and a half ago, I was playing a MA Man and I fought against Satis. This was another series on YouTube. And I kind of won that war, but, you know, it was a Pyrrhic victory because I ended up getting eliminated from the game. I got too weakened by it. I tried to hit him as he was doing, you know, basically at the apex almost of Satis's power. So in hindsight, not a brilliant move. I didn't have poison resistance ready to deal with foul vapors. But in terms of dealing with the skeletons, you know, I was massing cavalry and I was able to kind of punch through the skelly spam and hit some of the Sauromancers in the back. Now, here, I don't know if that's going to work again. I don't know if that's the best option. We'll have to see what he's relying on in addition to his skeleton swarms. His skeletons are kind of... They don't, so he doesn't have like access to super great reanimated undead, I don't think. And because of that, like so heavy cav, what's nice about them is that with 18 protection and 16 defense, like skeletons just kind of can't touch him really. But so much so that they also basically can't touch this kind of unit either. Like most reanimated skeletons just don't really do much here. So I think, excuse me, I just got a message here I have to double check. Okay. I kind of feel confident with defenders on my front line. In other words, I don't need this extra tankiness from this heavy cav. And these guys, I would have them on the front line and I would just have them on fire, not an attack closest. They would just, and of course we're going to have flaming weapons, you know. So these would be like a bunch of guys, firing crossbows. I put them way at front in the script, fire. Hopefully they get some mages. Now, I think, obviously we're going to have our sacreds. We script our Lord Wardens, which we'd be spamming out at that point. And our Lord Wardens and our Wardens on... Well, these guys can't be doing fire rear, so they're just on fire. But we script these guys on fire rear. And these are combat casters. So we're going to have them in front. And they are eventually going to switch to banishment spam. But we're going to set them to fire, and then they can choose between the two, is how the game interprets that script. But for the first few rounds, we're going to have them fire, and they might take out a few casters for us. But if not, it's just going to be like a hail of arrows. And honestly, we have more arrows than their mages are going to have fatigue. I think our mage support is going to be... early on, it's just going to be needed for a few buffs. If we have this war a bit later, then elementals would be a thing. Evocations are for sure a thing that I can do well, but typically my evocations would involve putting storm up, and they're kind of something that I do once I'm done using my arrows. I think we want to milk archery for all it's worth against LA Satis. Now, would I... Against LA Satis, would I consider some of these other units? Like if I had a solid enough front line, do I put longbowmen behind and crossbowmen behind? It's worth considering. The idea being, but here's the thing, like if, let's say you're facing 1,000 undead, right? Now, of course, you know, I'm also kind of on a clock in the sense that, you know, he's going to be putting up rigor mortis or something like that eventually if we're into the mid game here. So, you know, I got to chew through a lot of undead, and he's, you know, spewing out more. Now, adding a few longbowmen, having them near the front, just on regular fire, may get me lucky with some flaming arrows and may allow me to pick off some of his mages. That's something, so it's worth sprinkling a few of these in my army for that. But the thing is, the longbowmen or crossbows are just, yes, they're going to add extra DPS. They're going to help melt the army of undead in front of me. But that army is being replenished. Once that army is melted, in order to exploit that, I need to have like heavy cav to move in and chew through and get to the guys at the back. So once the front line is solid enough with a combination of maybe sacreds and defenders, I think I would add in equal amounts tower knights and maybe longbows, because any kind of alpha strike that I can do on his mages early on, 45 range on the longbow is enough to reach the back line if you're lucky. So I think that would be the strategy. In terms of research, I mean, by the way, I haven't really talked about it too, but after this, my priority is enchantment 4 and alteration 4. Now, after that, there are, a few things that I need to grab. But I have a choice of what order I do it in. Do I go to Conjuration 5 for full-size air elementals? Definitely an option. Do we go up to Evocation 5 for Storm and Thunderstrike? Storm for Storm Power, obviously, and Thunderstrike. Or do we go up to Construction, and in fact Construction 6 for Warbows and things like that? Or do we go to Enchantment 6 for Arrowfend, right? And Relief, although we won't be able to cast it, we can time this with our Pretender coming out. So there's, against Satis, like Evocation is going to be something if we need to transition out of archery sooner because we're fighting an opponent who already has Arrowfend. So we'd go Evocation in that case. Conjuration is always a good option. Construction is also always a good option. So that's going to be a call that I'll have to make, I think, at that time. Anyways, for now, I think that pretty much wraps up what I know about Satis yet. I'm moving this scout here. I'm hoping to see his expansion, to see what's going on. Like if he is using his sacreds with a light bless, maybe we'll see something. Yeah, let me load up. We have time still in this episode. Let's load up the next turn, which is my current turn. So continue turn 6. Okay, there was a battle in Faircliff. I believe, yes, this is our group. This is just south of our capital. So pretty average. We've got some heavy cav, some light infantry, and a small chunk of crossbows against 12 wardens. This guy is set on bless fire rear, I think. So 2 blesses is enough. Notice that they always shoot first before getting blessed. Did you just fail to bless like everybody on the bottom side? Yeah, he did. All right. Maybe I need to do 3 blessings before firing, because that was embarrassing. All right. Noted. These guys are on hold and attack closest, so if you take a guess at what's about to happen to these heavy infantry, deleted. So yeah, we just murderize these guys. So, this shows how, remember last turn, we were stuck fighting heavy infantry and light infantry for a while before we were able to get to the crossbows. And that's just because, honestly, we didn't have... one of my guys got crippled right away. We only had 9, I think, sacreds. Then it ended up being 8. And just the engagement was just not at the right angle. Now, of course, the crossbows are not actually shooting these guys, although it wouldn't have made a big difference. Now these guys have chewed through those 2 groups of melee units, and we're right on the crossbows, and I don't think we take a single casualty. So, you know, the difference between having 9, but one of them got crippled, so he was out of the fight the whole time. So having 8 wardens and 12 wardens is significant. Let's take a look at this battle. Here we are hoping that we don't have any nasty surprises. Oh, nice. Let's. Oh, and also they didn't get blessed in the other fight. Remember, because our guy got interrupted on divine blessing. So here we just got blowpipes. This is not threatening. Our blowpipes damage on extra effect on damage. But unfortunately, they only do 10 piercing damage, so most of the time they're not actually going to cause any damage to us. So we've already caused her out. Did we lose anybody? Nope. Well done, folks. Unexpected event, defense -5. And a new famous hero. Good. Okay, so we see that Tianqi now successfully expanded here. We moved our scout here to kind of keep trying to scout out what's going on. We see that he has already expanded here, which is not surprising, right? He's kind of clearing out his cap circle. So I'm going to move back here, hoping that this is what he clears out next turn. I really want to see what his what his bless is. Oh, I did send him a message last turn, just saying like, good luck with your expansion. You know, of course, I'm not going to move into your cap circle. You don't need to worry about that. And that's it. Now, obviously, I do want to build a fort here, but I can't really afford to do that right on his border yet. It'd be very obvious that I was doing it, and he could come and be an invitation for him to come and attack me. So we're going to hold off on that until... now, honestly, we're going to be pretty rich pretty soon. So we definitely want to find a place to build a fort. But we're just going to have to be a bit safer about it. Because, yeah, we don't have we don't have a choice. We can't afford to put a fort here on the border unless he somehow agrees to sign like a non-aggression pact early on. That might be long enough just to crank out a fort here. Anyways, I am taking these fellows, bringing them back here, and I'm also taking last turn's recruitment of Sacreds with their warden, and we're going to meet up in this province. And then next turn, I'm going to decide, I'm going to have this. And so I'm going to have to decide, do I go for the heavy calf province, or do I combine and go for this province? And to me, I think this is the superior choice. Because I'm going to have a fresh batch here. So I'm going to have next turn, see how now we've now got 3 in our cap circle. We still have 2 more provinces to clear in our cap circle. I'm going to have an additional thing done in my cap circle. I'm going to have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wardens here plus 2 defenders, plus an additional 6 and 2 here. So it's going to be 16 wardens. That's going to be a very strong army here. I'll feel confident if this hasn't been taken by Atlantis yet. I'll be confident pushing here and dealing with a bump if it happens. And if it's already been taken by Atlantis, I'll also feel confident either going into the heavy cav or going into this heavy province. Perhaps even splitting, if this is an easy indie group, then splitting and getting both of these at the same time. Meanwhile, with these 12 wardens, I've decided to head down to the southeast instead of right here, because this is mainly crossbowmen with heavy cavalry. Now, heavy cav can kill these guys, right? Because their first charge is pretty nasty, and I don't have any super cheap chaff to put in front to absorb the cavalry charge. Now, these guys do chew through heavy cav reasonably effectively, but if this is like 10 heavy cav, that's gonna keep these guys stuck in front, eating fire from mainly crossbowmen for a while. So I'm not super excited about that idea. So instead, we're gonna fight militias in heavy cav, because then first of all, it's fewer. Well, okay, This is theoretically potentially the same number of heavy cav, but militias do absolutely nothing. So this is something I can take on, and from here we'll then decide. We'll see what we see. I expect that this is going to be somewhere in here. We'll see what happens with this group afterwards. Maybe we'll see. We will see. This scout is waiting here because I'm sure that this is going to want to take this one day. So I'd like to see what he has. And then this scout is probably going to head out and see what player is in that corner. We're continuing to recruit scouts. We haven't found any interesting indies yet. We do have our first nature mage here. But this is a pretty shitty nature mage. In fact, it's like the shittiest one. And this province is it's not really worth forting up. So I'm not going to bother to get that nature mage. Otherwise, we have, well, we do have indie crossbows here, but our national crossbows are better than these guys. So we don't really need to recruit them. We do have the cheap crossbows here. Actually, I hadn't noticed that. You know, I can get just start piling up a few of these guys. I hadn't, let me go and change my turn actually. I'll just start recruiting these because we have the money. So yeah, I'm going to start just getting a bunch of these, cheap indie crossbows. Is it worth getting these guys? No, really, not really. But I'll get these. I'll start recruiting these. We also got a great gold mine here, which is giving us an extra 100 gold, which is fantastic. So yeah, we're going to start making a lot of money pretty fast. I should spend that on some indies, and I should bump this PD up. So I'm gonna go change my turn. We got a random event last turn that dropped this PD down. So we're gonna bump this PD right back up. This is our recruitment. We're gonna start cranking out indie crossbowmen here just because we can, and they're the cheap kind. And you know, I might. Do I get these indie crossbowmen? Nah, 8 morale. God, that's so bad. These are pretty bad too. And not a lot of resources here. I can only get like 3 per turn. And these are pretty crappy indies. All right. We'll start recruiting some of these guys. Okay, that's gonna be it. See you guys next time. Take care.